home to great debates and the hottest sports topics. Now, here are your hosts, Jeremy Farina, Justin Paolillo, and Holden Borelli.
Edition of SportsTalk. I'm Holden Borelli alongside Justin Paolillo. Jeremy Farina is currently away on a business trip filming his football documentary for North Haven High School football. But we'll kick things off here in a brief minute here with our first topic at hand. ESPN.com has recently just released their best point guards list in the NBA as of right now. The list is, as it stands, Russell Westbrook at number 1, Steph Curry at number 2, Chris Paul at number 3, Kyrie Irving of the Cavs at number 4, and Damian Lillard rounding out the top 5. This list was comprised of an anonymous survey of 25 NBA GMs. Justin, who is the best point guard in the game?
So based on this top 5 list, I think the best, it depends on what you say point guard. Do you mean a point guard that's similar to a Magic Johnson who passes the ball yet does his scoring? Or do you maybe mean a guy like, Kyrie Irving, who definitely could score the basketball and can score it in volume, but really isn't known for his passing? But I think overall, it's got to be Chris Paul here. I mean, Blake Griffin goes down, Chris Paul stepped it up big time. I mean, you got to give credit to DeAndre Jordan as well. But Chris Paul was a big driving force on why the Clippers remain relevant with arguably their best player going down with the elbow injury, and he's still playing well now that Blake Griffin is back. So I think Paul is just overall the best. I mean, he plays great defense. He's going to give you 2+ steals a game. He's always known for his assists, 10+. He's averaging 10 assists this year, and he's going to score over 20 a game. So he does it all. I mean, Westbrook, walking triple-double, obviously we know what he does. He has had and the only thing with Westbrook is his field goal percentage. He's never been a great shooter from the field. He takes a lot of shots, and sure, he gets a lot of points, but if you're taking a lot of shots and missing half of them, or missing 75% of them, that's not a great field goal percentage. So, and if you're taking a lot of shots, some of them are going to go in, and your points are going to add up, especially from the free throw line. So overall, I think it's Chris Paul, just pound for pound point guard. He's only 6 feet tall, and he does it all as far as I'm concerned as a point guard. But this list you gave, Holden, I think Rajon Rondo should have been on this list, just because when he's healthy, I think this guy's unstoppable defensively. He can grab 15 assists a night on any given night if he wants to. His only downside is scoring, but I think I want to see more from Kyrie Irving, more of an all-around game from him before I put him on this list. But I think if Rondo's 100% in the situation he needs to be, I think Rondo's on this list. But as of right now, I think this list was accurate, and I think Chris Paul is the number 1 point guard in the league.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Justin. I definitely think Chris Paul is definitely the best point guard in the game right now. He's averaging 10 assists a game. When you look at a point guard, you think of a guy who is a floor general, who is a pass-first point guard in an NBA littered with score-first point guards. I definitely Chris Paul is definitely the greatest point guard I've seen in a while in terms of the half court. He can get it done. In full court, he's not as athletic as a Westbrook, but in terms of the half court, which you really need to excel in terms of playoff basketball, he does a great job of finding the open man or getting up the shot himself, being a feisty leader, inspiring his teammates. But I definitely think a guy that was left off this list was a Michael Conley Jr. of the Memphis Grizzlies. They're having a wonderful season. I think they're in the top 5 in terms of seeding in the West right now.
They're in second.
They're the second. They're certainly an NBA title contender this year. And Mike Conley Jr. is still a young point guard. He's still developing, but he's getting better each and every year, and he competes on the defensive end of the floor, which I love to see from NBA players in an offensive-minded league nowadays. And I definitely think another guy that was left off this list, I agree with you, Justin, Rajon Rondo is capable of averaging a triple-double on a nightly basis. This guy is legitimate. He's only 28 years old. He's won a ring already, and he's still coming for more with the Dallas Mavericks. I definitely think another guy we didn't talk about, Kyle Lowry of the Toronto Raptors, who's having a breakout year this year for the Raptors. He competes on both ends of the floor. You really never heard about him until he got to Toronto, though. He's 28 years old. You didn't hear about his time with Houston, but I guess you got to be in the right system, and here he is in Toronto producing, and he's a legitimate star in this league. Jeff Teague is another name for the Atlanta Hawks, averaging 17 points, 7 assists a game. making that offense go. They're the best team in the NBA, in my opinion. The team that's playing the best team basketball right now, and it's really fun to see all these great point guards in the league. The league is definitely not short on star point guards.
Now, Holden, did you mention John Wall?
No, I didn't mention John Wall.
Look, it's very hard to narrow, especially in the NBA, it's very hard to narrow down 5 point guards because the point guard, in my opinion, is the best position in basketball right now, has the most talent. But John Wall, I mean, when you lead the league in assists, that's generally what you think of with point guards, is passing the basketball. And John Wall is leading the league in assists. Obviously, his team has been struggling as of late, so you can't really give him too much credit based on just his numbers because the team has been slacking a little bit. But I think if they push on a little bit in the playoffs and then he keeps that momentum going into next year, keeping his stats up and getting a higher seed in the Eastern Conference, I personally think he could be definitely on this list next year. But do you have anything else to say on this topic? Because I have a quick thing. I was reading a stat, I think it was on Twitter today, based on the remaining season. They gave odds for the Western Conference teams on who's going to make the playoffs. So I think the top 5 seeds all had a 100% chance of getting in, and the remaining 3 had like an 89% chance. And after that, the 9, 10, 11 seeds had like a 36% chance. So based on those odds, it's pretty clear what the 8 teams will be in the playoffs. And the matchups would be OKC versus Golden State, Portland versus the Clippers, Mavericks versus Memphis, and Spurs versus Houston. I just wanted to get, let's say those, which it looks like it's going to happen, let's just say those standings stay the same. I was just going to ask you, and I'll put some input in, what you think will be the outcome in the first round. So I'll start here. For OKC, Golden State, I'm going to go with Golden State. I think if Durant was healthy, and if he somehow can come back healthy with the foot injury, even though it's pretty doubtful at this point, I think I would give OKC more of a fighting chance, but I think Golden State just having a dominant year, so I'd give it to them. Portland versus Clippers, I think this is a great matchup. We just mentioned Chris Paul as being the best point guard in the NBA in some people's opinions, and Blake Griffin's back healthy. DeAndre Jordan's having a great year, 15 rebounds a game, 2.5 block shots, good year. But I'm going to go with the Clippers pulling the upset here. And then Mavs, Memphis, I got to go with Memphis. I've been picking them to win the NBA Finals all year. I'm not gonna stop at this point. I got Memphis. I would say this is a 5-6 game series. And Spurs, Houston, this one's tough because Houston is a high seed, being the 3 seed. And you think, this is their year. But going up against a team like San Antonio, that now that they're healthy, they're on a 6-game win streak right now. All right, they were on a 5-game, they lost the other night. But when 100% healthy, this team is dangerous. And their team really hasn't changed much from the championship team last year. So why would you want to? It's tough to play them. It's obviously tough to play any of these teams. But I think I'm going to go with the Spurs upsetting the Rockets in that game. But Holden, what do you think, based on those numbers?
Yeah, this is a tough, obviously, conference for teams to advance deep into the playoffs. At least it's pretty much a cakewalk for anybody to really proceed deep into the playoffs. But I think in terms of Golden State for OKC, I agree with you, Justin. I think Golden State would win out in that series. A lot of teams are saying, people are saying that in terms of OKC as a team, they're a dangerous 8 seed. No one wants to play OKC as an 8 seed, but especially with Kevin Durant and Serge Ibaka come back healthy. But for them, those 3 guys haven't been on the floor together this season that much. Their chemistry is very weak, and their playing styles are very rusty. If Kevin Durant comes back and Ibaka, both these guys need to get that rust off, and you can't be rusty in the playoffs. I think OKC goes down to an excellent Golden State team. And I think for the other 3 matchups, it's pretty much a toss-up. All these teams are legitimate. They're all championship contenders, and they're all so evenly matched. I think in terms of the Western Conference, I don't think about the best teams. I think about the best matchups. I think if Portland was playing San Antonio, they could beat San Antonio. But I think if Portland was playing the Clippers, they lose to the Clippers. It's all about matchups.
Exactly.
So the Western Conference, it's a pick-em conference. But I definitely think the thing I'm most confident about is OKC going down to Golden State.
And I like what you said there with matchups, because if you look last year, the Spurs pretty much walked into the finals after they beat the Mavs. Their hardest matchup, they went 7 games and almost lost the Mavs in the first round, and then they just ran over the West and eventually the Heat. So let's say, they could easily have lost the Mavs in that first round, and everybody would have been like, they're done, but it turns out they would have won the finals. So it's like you said, Holden, I definitely agree. It is all about matchups. And, I mean, these are just percentages. This isn't clear-cut. This is it. And obviously these standings could change. Maybe a team gets hot, team gets cold. But I think if these matchups stay the same, I think it's definitely going to be a toss-up, I would say, aside from Golden State OKC. But did you have any more topics that you want to continue the show with, or did you want to add on to this?
Well, I think another great NBA topic we can transition into is James Harden has been on a legitimate tear, especially without Dwight Howard. This Rockets
who is returning tonight.
Right. This Rockets team is surging, and James Harden has been dropping some serious numbers. He dropped 44 points the other night. Who is your NBA MVP?
Well, we talked about this, I would say, 4 weeks ago, and I think as a group we narrowed it down to Curry, Westbrook, Harden, and then LeBron, because we had mentioned, he had that great streak going. But I think at this point, I think what Curry's not doing anything special. I mean, he's just doing his averages. I mean, yeah, the team is the best team in the Western Conference, and if you're the best player on that team, you definitely deserve some recognition. But I don't think his numbers and his game is really blowing me away. I think this is what we've expected from him. But I think if you look at James Harden, who, like you mentioned, their second best players out, they don't really have any other scoring around them, so he's getting all the defensive attention, and he's still dropping. He was leading the league in scoring until Westbrook took it over after that big tear he had. And I think for LeBron too, I just think LeBron's having just an average year as far as his standards go. Obviously a LeBron average year is great for anybody else, but I just think it's got to be down between Westbrook and Harden at this point. But I think it is going to go to James Harden. I don't think Westbrook can keep up this triple-double streak very long, and it's really tough. Like I heard, I forget who it was on NBA TV, but they were saying it's pretty ironic that we're talking about a team fighting for the playoffs, obviously being led by Westbrook, and he's supposed to be the MVP. Like usually you'd say the MVP is a 1-2 seed. Like obviously that would give guy who's winning, that would give Harden the advantage there, and Curry, if you want to look at just winning. But I think it's going to go to Harden overall. We'll see how he plays with Dwight Howard. If his numbers drop, if the team starts losing because he's back in, I would maybe lean towards Westbrook. These next 12 games are going to say a lot, but I think right now the advantage goes to James Harden.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Justin. Sorry, I was called Jeremy. I agree with you, Justin. I definitely think I'm going with James Harden as the league MVP. This guy is... Not only is he putting up monster numbers, 27 points, almost 7 assists a game, but he's winning. And he's winning a lot, and he's winning without their second best player, the Rockets' second best player in Dwight Howard. There really isn't a secondary scorer. Chandler Parsons is in Dallas, he was in Houston, but they don't have a secondary scorer to complement James Harden. He's attracting all the defensive attention, and he's also putting in a good effort on the defensive side of the floor. And this team is winning a bunch of games and really
third seed in the West,
flourishing without Dwight Howard, which is a surprise. If Russell Westbrook is definitely having the best stats season of all the prospective MVP candidates, he's putting up 27 points a game, leading the league, 8 assists a game, 6 rebounds a game. He's having a monster year, but the Thunder aren't winning games. When Kevin Durant was playing without Russell Westbrook last season, they were still winning games, and he obviously won the MVP. So in terms of that perspective, I think you have to give the award to James Harden for what he's able to accomplish on a relatively mediocre Houston Rockets team without him.
Yeah, and I just want to throw in one more quick point here. It's like, if you look at Russell Westbrook, or not Westbrook, James Harden, and you compare him to say let's say LeBron James, LeBron's averaging 1 less point than him, 1 more rebound, and I think they're right around the same for assist. So their numbers aren't off at all. But I think you have to look at Harden and the fact that he's in the tough Western Conference and he's getting the job done. LeBron's in I don't want to call it a joke conference, but compared to the West, it's pretty easy to win, and he's bringing those numbers. I think if LeBron wants to win MVP, he should be averaging 30 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists, and the team should be clear-cut number 1 seed, and they're not. The Hawks are running away with that conference. So I just think it's got to be Harden. I mean, he's just had that year. Like, remember last year with Durant, you knew he was the MVP. You knew because of his performances during the games, you knew that when he was on the court, those 7 straight 30-plus games. You knew it was MVP, and you knew it was LeBron in previous years. And you just had that feeling with Derrick Rose back in 2011. It was him. It's just, I just feel that with Harden this year, and I don't necessarily feel that with Russell Westbrook. Maybe it's because he was, injured. And another thing is, too, let's say they, like we mentioned earlier, so they get into the playoffs as an 8 seed, let's say. What if Durant and Ibaka come back? You got Westbrook, who's been on a tear, and he's been in that playing style of, let me do it all for the team. Let me pass, let me rebound, let me score. What is going to happen when their best scorer comes back, Kevin Durant? I just don't know what they're going to do, because if Durant comes back and he demands the ball and Ibaka's there, he needs his scoring too, and then you got Waiters coming off the bench. I think that changes Westbrook's game, and I think that, like you mentioned, Holden, with the chemistry, I think that would hurt it even more with those guys coming back, just because of Westbrook's been so used to playing alone. Pretty much. I mean, he's had teammates around him, but he's been the sole guy. And I think so if Durant came back and Ibaka came back, I just think that would kill their chemistry and ultimately lose to Golden State. But overall, I got a little off topic there. It's James Harden for MVP, unless something changes this week.
You definitely make some great points there, Justin. And still keeping in the topic of the NBA, we're moving on to our next topic. Steve Nash, at age 41, has just retired from the NBA. Justin, what is his legacy?
Steve Nash will go down as one of the greatest point guards of all time. 2 MVPs. Not many guys can say they won 2 MVPs. I mean, you look how hard it is just to win 1 MVP, and this guy won 2. He never had any spectacular scoring numbers, 17 points here, but he did it with the passing. He did it as a floor general, and quite frankly, he won games. Even in his older age with Phoenix, when he was in his mid-30s, he was still winning games with Amari Stoudemire, Shaq. I mean, the Suns would not be the team they were today without him. The Lakers thought they were going to get the older Steve Nash and pair him up with Kobe and Dwight and Powell down in Los Angeles. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, and he's had back issues and forced him to lead to retirement. But one thing I think that is really going to bother critics or Steve Nash himself is the fact that he never won an NBA championship. And I'm personally not big on rating people based on how many rings they get, but a lot of people are big on that. And I think it's too bad. I wish he would have at least gotten one. I think people thought he was going to get one with the Lakers, and he was so close back when he was on the Suns. I mean, there were countless times they lost the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals, and it's just unfortunate for him that he wasn't able to get it done. And he was playing on good teams. I mean, those Suns teams were good teams, and he played with Dirk Nowitzki down in Dallas as well. And then he was on the Lakers with that great team. So it's just unfortunate he couldn't win it. But overall, Steve Nash will go down as, in my opinion, a top 10 point guard of all time, and he's going to go down as a 2-time MVP, which is great for him, but just missing that 1 ring.
Yeah, Steve Nash, definitely one of the most unathletic players the NBA has ever seen, but at the same time, one of the most successful players the NBA has ever seen. I think without Steve Nash or Mike D'Antoni, we would never see this up-tempo, frenetic pace of an NBA offense that we see now today, very common in the league. Back-to-back MVP, first-round draft pick, the only player to have more than 3 40, 50, 90 seasons. I think Michael Jordan did it twice.
Kevin Durant did it?
Larry Bird did it twice, and Steve Nash did it 4 times. That's pretty amazing stat-wise. And this guy's been in the playoffs time and time again. And it's funny, usually a player starts to decline in their 30s through their up until they're 40. Steve Nash had some of his best years in his 30s, better than when he in his 20s, and that's just a testament to how smart of a player he is and how talented he is. Definitely, the NBA game will miss seeing a point guard like him, who's always pass first and find the open man, when you have a league today where it's all about, for point guards, score, score, score.
And another thing about Steve Nash very quickly is you look at the players he impacted in their games. Amari Stoudemire is a great basketball player, but I don't know how good his game would be without Steve Nash mentoring him and really helping him get into the mold of the NBA. Amari was, sure, he's a great player and he dunked on a lot of people, but a lot of those dunks were set up by great passes and great ball movement by Steve Nash. He also helped guys like Leandro Barbosa, who won 6th Man of the Year, when he was on Phoenix with Steve Nash, and he was there to mentor young guys like Goran Dragic and
Marcin Gortat.
Was there.
There's a lot of guys who've come through Phoenix and played with Steve Nash.
And that's not seen on the stat sheet.
And frankly, been better players than they actually are because of Steve Nash. So, great player. The game will miss him.
Definitely.
Moving on to the next topic, we're going to transition into the NFL. The Washington Redskins are rumored to possibly dumping RG3 and his $16 million option for the 2016 season and starting fresh over in 2015, possibly drafting a guy like Marcus Mariota with the number 5 pick in this year's draft. Justin, should the Redskins draft a QB with the number 5 pick?
So they would trade RG3 for the number 5 pick?
Yeah, trade him, cut him. They would dump him and draft a guy, or keep him for this year.
So they have the number 5 pick this year?
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
So there's rumors they might draft Mariota at number 5, keep RG3 this year, and have Mariota sit a year, and then...
So do you think Mariota will stay to the 5th pick?
I definitely think he'll stay because I think Tennessee believes in Zach Mettenberger for another year. They have a number 2 pick, and the number 3 pick...
Jacksonville,
they don't need a quarterback. They have Blake Bortles, and number 1 pick, I think that's Jameis Winston. So it's very likely...
it would be unlikely to maybe trade the 5th pick and RG3 for the 1st pick and maybe like some other guy. But I think you do need to just part ways with RG3. I mean, he had a great rookie year. First few years, I mean, he won the NFC East, it was competitive then. It wasn't like it is now, but it was a competitive division. And I just think you need to part ways with this guy. I mean, they have some good pieces with Morris at the running back position and Deshaun Jackson, I think a guy like Deshaun Jackson, I'm sorry, not Dua. Am I thinking the right guy?
On the Eagles? Deshaun Jackson, yeah.
Yeah, Deshaun Jackson. Sorry, I mixed up him and LaShawn. But Deshaun Jackson, I think this would be a great time to get a new guy coming in there because let's say you draft Mariota. It'd be nice to have a guy you could actually throw the ball to and a guy who's proven that he can be an elite wide receiver in this league when healthy and when he wants to play. So I think if you get Mariota in a system that I think would fit his game well, you got a good running back to take the pressure off of him and a good wide receiving core. I think it would be a win-win situation for both. I think RG3 needs to move on. Maybe he can find a new home in, let's say, New York Jets, Jeremy's Jets. Mm-hmm. I think that would be pretty good. The Bills can use a QB. They don't know really what they're doing. Are they going to go with Manuel or Castle? I don't know. But I just think it would be a win-win. RG3 would get to start fresh, and the Redskins would get a young prospect in Mariota who could possibly be their franchise quarterback for the next 12 years. So I think it's a win-win situation.
Yeah, I definitely think the Redskins need to cut bait with RG3. And I'm a Washington Redskins fan, and this is a tough thing for me to say, but RG3, we've never seen a relationship between star player and franchise sour so quickly in such a short period of time and sour so dramatically as it has between the Redskins.
I think about what they did to get him.
And RG3, right, 3 first-round picks just to get RG3. And the Rams have turned those 3 picks into 3 starters on their defense. So obviously it's paid off for the Rams in a huge way. They're on the up and up as a contender in the NFC. But back to the Redskins, I definitely think if they draft Mariota, they should still keep RG3, sit Mariota a year because he's coming right out of that Oregon offense. He really doesn't know how to play in a pro-style system. Have him sit a year, learn under RG3.
Then trade RG3?
No, let him walk because they're not going to pick up that $18 million option
I don't think so.
on his rookie contract. Even if RG3 has a stud year this year, he's only had 2 years out of a possible 5. Or no, I'm sorry, 4. If they pick up the option, it'll be a 5th year, obviously. But he's only had 2 good seasons if he has a good season this year. He has shown a case to be injury-prone. And look, I think he's a bit of a drama queen. I think he's sipping the Kool-Aid on RG3. He's a little full of himself. And I think he needs to go back to what guys like Drew Brees and Tony Romo do. Stay out of the media spotlight. Just focus on the grind and become a better football player. Stop doing these Adidas commercials. I know they pay you a lot of money, but it's taking away from time you could be on the field throwing practice passes to Deshaun Jackson and Pierre Garçon. And I think RG3 should just go back to the type of person he was his rookie year. He shut up, he balled, and then he could do whatever he wanted. You didn't hear about him prior to his first season in the NFL.
And look what he did.
And look what he did.
He won games.
He lit it up. And They're not going to pick up an $18 million option. The Redskins are cap-strapped as it is. I think with the number 5 pick, they're either going to get a pass rusher or they're going to pick up Mariota. And I think for RG3, he wants out of D.C. and start fresh somewhere else where he can rebuild his image. And the ideal situation, I think, for him, I think he would want to go to Denver. He grew up a Denver Broncos fan. Peyton Manning is on the verge of retiring. That would be an ideal scenario for him.
Even if he had to sit 1 year.
Right. But I definitely think the Redskins should draft a QB or because I don't know if you can afford to, wait for RG3 to develop. That team, the Redskins, have suffered long enough, and it's worse to get teased with one season of winning the division crown.
And I like what you said, Holden, about Denver. I think that'd be a great move for him because, like I said, even if he has to sit 1 year, that's one heck of an insurance policy if Peyton Manning were to go down with another thigh injury, shoulder injury, what have you.
Or this could be his final year. He retires, and RG3 steps right in.
Steps right in. If you want to rest Peyton Manning over the regular season for a couple games, you have a guy who can win football games as your backup. And, like you mentioned, if he retires next year, you have a guy to step right in. You don't have to rebuild through a draft. You don't have to rebuild a young quarterback.
Exactly.
So I think it'd be I think no matter what the Redskins do, I think it'd be a win-win for them and a win situation for RG3 wherever he ends up. Unless he winds up like Tim Tebow being a ESPN analyst, which isn't a bad career, but he needs to be playing football.
Exactly. Well, staying within the NFL and keeping with the topic of quarterbacks, Russell Wilson is due for a contract extension with the Seattle Seahawks. He has 1 year left on his deal. Justin, does he deserve to be the highest paid quarterback in the league?
Definitely not. No way Russell Wilson is the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. The Seahawks defense made him. Russell Wilson is a competitor. He's a great teammate, and he knows how to play football. But there is no way he should be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. I mean, if you have the likes of Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Andrew Luck, Andy Dalton, I guess you could say, a guy who's decent. Help me out here. Other Joe Flacco, who you're not a big fan of.
Jeremy
Ben Roethlisberger. I think all those guys are better than Russell Wilson.
I'm not sipping the Joe Flacco Kool-Aid.
Trade Russell Wilson with any of those guys, and I think Russell Wilson struggles. But he's the perfect guy to have on the Seahawks because their defense, running game, and wide receivers are set. They need a guy to just manage the game, and he's the perfect guy for that. So if you want to pay him for the system he's in, go right ahead. But I just don't think he should be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. I think it needs to go to a guy who can win on almost any team he plays on.
I think if I'm Russell Wilson, I have all the leverage in the world, especially in a quarterback market where the highest paid quarterback in the league is Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler
Jay Cutler's game.
Jay Cutler has not made the playoffs in 3 years. Joe Flacco really Russell Wilson, but 6'5", great defense that's carried them into the playoffs. A running game with Ray Rice. I mean, similar guys. Doesn't put up monstrous statistics yet. He's one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league. But back to the point, Jay Cutler is the highest paid quarterback in the league, and you have to pay what the market demands and what the market is paying. So I don't think he deserves to be the highest paid quarterback in the league, but he will have to be the highest paid quarterback in the league. And he has a stellar resume. Every single year of his pro career, he has been in the playoffs. Every single year of his career in the pros, he has won more than 10 games. And he's been to obviously back-to-back Super Bowls.
Has a ring.
He's been in the Pro Bowl. He's a playmaker. No problems off the field. Stellar character. This guy is the ideal quarterback.
For a team like Seattle.
And frankly, he could be the face of the NFL.
Well, because look at Wilson, for example. Let's say he's a free agent. He can go wherever he wants. If he wants to go to the Bills, I don't think he's worth a lot of money. But if he wants to go to the Seahawks, I think he's worth a lot of money because he works there and he wins games. But any other team, he doesn't win games. So I think, like you said, Holden, he has to get paid the most because of the team that's signing him and his resume.
Frankly, I don't think Russell Wilson wants to leave Seattle because it's just such a great situation. Because
who would want to leave?
That defense is so young. Sherman's only 26.
And
Earl Thomas is only 25.
Look who they added for him to throw to.
Right. Added Jimmy Graham. That team is young and could compete legitimately in the Super Bowl for the next 5 years. And I don't think he'll want to leave. And frankly, with all the moves the Seahawks have made, they've signed some big money players. They haven't necessarily dumped a bunch of cap space to clear to re-sign Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson will take a hometown discount to stay in Seattle. But I definitely think he deserves to be one of those guys considered to be one of the highest paid quarterbacks
he definitely, he's not at the level of, let's say, a
Aaron
Matt
Rodgers.
Castle or, let's say he's not. I don't think he's at Aaron Rodgers level, but he's not a Matt Castle either. He's a starter in the NFL, and he's a winning starter.
Right.
And with Seattle, I'll say it again, he deserves the money.
Exactly.
But I just, it's hard for my mind to think like, but if he's on any other team, I don't think he's worth that because you think of his talent.
Right.
He's
with
a great
star
man.
players. You always set the bar with other players who have just gotten paid. So Ndamukong Suh just got 6 years, $114 million. Obviously, that exceeded the 6 years and $100 million J.J. Watt just got. So players are always looking to one-up each other. And Jay Cutler with that 7-year, $126 million deal.
Wilson,
I think Russell Wilson's probably going to look for an 8-year deal. He's going to look for a long-term contract to stay in Seattle. Moving on to our next topic, staying within the NFL, Adrian Peterson has communicated through his agent, then who has communicated through the public, that he wants to get out of Minnesota and cut ties with the Vikings. Justin, what should the Vikings do with Adrian Peterson?
I think you need to drop him. I think if there's ever a situation where a guy doesn't want to be there, he's not going to give 100%. I mean, he says he is, maybe he looks like he is, but he's not. He doesn't want to be there. Maybe if the team was a little better, I would say, if I'm Adrian Peterson, I'll stay. Maybe we have a chance, but I don't think the Vikings go anywhere. And this guy's not 24 years old. He doesn't have years to develop. He just turned 30 and was riding a camel. So I just don't think he should be wasting his time in Minnesota. It is up to the Vikings, however. But if I were the Vikings too, like, you should be in rebuilding mode right now. I don't think you should be in the quote unquote Goldilocks zone where you're third in your division, not getting a high draft pick, but you're not getting in the playoffs. I think if you have Peterson, I think that's where you are. And I just think it would help Peterson's game because he'd be in a place where he wants to play, and he would definitely help the team he's at because he's no doubt a top 5 running back, if not the best running back in the league. And the Vikings would be able to start fresh, get it. They have a draft pick this year. They're going to get a high draft pick next year, considering Peterson's not there and they're not going to play well. And they're going to rebuild for the future. So I think they have to cut ties with Adrian Peterson.
Yeah, I definitely think Adrian Peterson is going to have to leave that franchise. He signed a 7-year, $93 million extension with the Vikings a couple seasons ago. And in today's market where running backs are making like next to pennies, I mean, only making $3-4 million a year, you're going to have to cut ties with a guy who's making more than $10 million a year as a running back. Not to mention he's 30 years old. He took a year off from the league. He obviously was suspended because of his domestic violence case. We really don't know what type of player he's going to be when he comes back into the NFL. I think he wants out too because he doesn't like the way the Vikings treated him in terms of not standing by his side during the whole domestic violence criminal investigation that he was going through in court. So I definitely think a guy like Adrian Peterson needs to get out of there and maybe play for the Cowboys, who don't have a running back right now because DeMarco Murray just went to the Eagles. And I think he would because
great.
He lives in Texas, so in the offseason. So it would be a great pickup for the Cowboys. And I think the Vikings, I agree with you, new quarterback Teddy Bridgewater. They just got Mike Wallace at wide receiver, young tight end, young offensive line, young defense. They're building for the future. And Adrian Peterson was a part of that old Vikings franchise, that old era. They need to move on.
So you rebuild now. He's 34 and retired. What does that do for him or your team? Nothing.
Exactly. Moving on to our next topic, staying within the NFL, free agency has been wild this offseason. Guys like DeMarco Murray, Ryan Matthews, big money running backs going to new franchises. Justin, Greg Hardy, premier pass rusher, signed with the Cowboys. Is that a good move or a bad move?
I think it's a very good move by the Cowboys. The only downside to it was signing Greg Hardy didn't kill their chances to get Adrian Peterson, but they won't be able to pay him as much because they committed big-time money to Greg Hardy. But I think that's the one thing the Cowboys needed was help on their defense. And I think a guy like Greg Hardy, who can get to the quarterback at any play, is a great pick up motivation to your defense, and they get Lee back on their defense as well. So I just think it's a great move by them because, like we mentioned, Holden, their offensive line is great. So you or I could run for them, and we'd be good. So and they have who's their running back? Their backup.
Julian Randle or something
Yeah,
like that.
Randle.
Julius Randle
And
or something.
didn't they sign somebody to run?
Oh, Darren McFadden.
Darren
from the
McFadden.
Raiders.
Darren McFadden will do just fine there with that
Yeah.
offensive line.
Nicky Rags could run through that line.
Nicky Rags could run through that line, as we saw in his flag football highlights from gym class.
Exactly.
But Darren McFadden will do fine there. They needed help on defense. Great move by them. Only thing is, if you wanted Peterson bad, if you're a Cowboys fan, who Jake Brangy, I know you're a Cowboys fan, it's a tough one, but because it's going to hurt your chances of getting Peterson. But helping your defense, I think, is only going to help them in the future.
Yeah.
And for this season, especially because getting McFadden, he's not going to last forever, but this year they'll be fine.
Exactly.
And I think it was a good move.
Yeah, I definitely think Greg Hardy was a great pickup for them. 1 year deal. So obviously it's going to be motivation for Greg Hardy to play at his highest level because he's looking for the long-term deal. It's a prove-it deal. High cap number, though, so obviously they're not going to be able to surround Tony Romo with more pieces or the defense with more pieces, but I think Greg Hardy's the one guy that team was missing. They needed an elite pass rusher.
After losing Ware.
And they had no pass rushers last year. The guy with the most sacks on the team last year had 4.5 sacks. That's not going to get it done. So I think Greg Hardy was a great pickup. But moving on to our next topic, we're actually going to transition back into the NBA. The Washington Wizards have looked atrocious during the second half of the season. They have had several losing streaks throughout the second half of the season. Justin, what are you seeing out there that's going wrong with the Wizards?
What I'm seeing out there is, I don't want to say lack of motivation, but I feel like the Wizards kind of got a little settled down. Like, we're a good team, we'll be fine, we'll get a 3-4 seed,
right.
We'll wait for the playoffs, and
just
then they
make
realize,
it to the playoffs.
Oh crap, the Eastern Conference is getting better with trades, whatnot. Teams are getting better, they're not really used to it. I think they lose Ariza, who was one of their better offensive players, and pick up Pierce, who's a great fourth quarter closer. And obviously Beal comes back off the injury. So I think the team chemistry got messed up a little bit. But I think they'll be fine. They've kind of bounced back a little bit over the past couple of weeks, winning some big games.
They're big men or older players.
They're big men. They're veterans. Nene knows how to get it done. And Gortat is just they call him the Polish Hammer for a reason. He's just he just knows what he's doing down there. He's going to knock you around. He's going to be physical. And that's really what they need because they have Wall and Beal who can get the job done, and Pierce who is their fourth quarter. That's why they brought him in there for the playoffs to get it done in the fourth. You know Pierce is getting the ball for a game-winning shot. It's not going to be Wall or Beal. And I think they'll be fine in the playoffs. Probably end up with a 3, 4, or 5 seed. They'll be fine. The East is, like you mentioned, Holden. Anybody can really steal that conference. So I think they'll be fine, but I just credit to, I would say, a little bit of lack of motivation, and you could credit a little bit to team chemistry, but overall I just think it's a little fluke. Maybe some guys haven't maybe been a little hurt, whatever, what have you, but I think they'll be fine moving forward, and that's really all that matters is the playoffs.
Yeah, looking at this team, obviously John Wall, one of the more elite point guards in the game. Bradley Beal is a great secondary scorer. He's on the up and up. Paul Pierce, savvy veteran, and then they got 2 big men, the Twin Towers, and Nene and Gortat, and they have a decent bench as well. I think Trevor Ariza was a big loss because he was a great three-point shooter, but also a great defender. No one talks about how great of a defender Ariza was for that team. But this team does not have an elite coach, in my opinion. Randy Whitman has been with that franchise for years, and this team is just starting to pull it together and really make it as contenders in the Eastern Conference. I think this team is one elite coach away from being a serious team. Because it's a players' league. You don't have good players, you're not going to win. But once you have good players, you just need that right coach to push your buttons, and you could become an elite team. And I think the Wizards need a coach like that.
So would you say, let's say the Wizards, let's say they get a 4 seed, and maybe they win round 1, and let's say they get swept round 2. Do you think they fire Whitman?
I think they have to fire Whitman because they have a lot of talent on that team, and their 2 big men are getting older. The window is short, and they need an elite coach who can come in.
Especially because they're trying to sign Durant in 2 years.
Exactly.
Just start fresh with Durant.
They need an elite coach, and Randy Whitman seems like a nice guy, but this guy is just starting to pull this team together. And look, you've been in the league long enough. You should have been doing this already. So I definitely think they need a different coach in Washington. That's really the fix that they need. But otherwise, keeping up with basketball, March Madness, NCAA tournament has hit America by storm. That's all we're watching. I know on Sunday, that's all I did was watch the NCAA tournament. Justin, who is in your Final Four?
Well, I unfortunately had VCU winning it all. They lost in a overtime heartbreaker to Ohio State and D'Angelo Russell. But I was a little upset about that. But I think Duke's going to make it to the Final Four. I think Okafor is just a legitimate player. I've been saying that since we talked about mock drafts in last year. And I like Wisconsin as well. I think Wisconsin has a chance to go all the way with Frank the Tank leading the way. They have some great shooters around them, athletic players as well. And I thought Nova was going to do better. Unfortunately, they lost. But I think Arizona will also be in the Final Four. And then to kind of finish that off there, I would say another team I would like to see. This isn't necessarily what I have, but just teams I think could get into the Final Four. I would think, who was that team I had?
Dayton?
No. UCLA, possibly not.
UCLA. They're definitely the hottest team.
Yeah, they're a team that they can catch fire and be like a team like UConn, who's middle of the pack seeding.
But they live by the three and die by the three.
And obviously Kentucky.
Justin, what do I always say?
If the jumper ain't falling, you ain't balling.
Exactly.
And then Kentucky, I can't leave them out. The team is legit. I don't want to see them win. I don't like how they stack their team like they did. Obviously, they got it done, and you got to credit Coach Calipari for being the great recruiting coach that he is.
Exactly.
And think about it. You know D'Angelo Russell on Ohio State, the number 2 NBA draft prospect? He was almost going to play there. So they would arguably have, 3 or 4 guys going top 10 in the NBA draft.
And you already
have
the Harrison
team.
twins.
You have the Harrison twins.
Oh, my goodness.
You'd have Carl Anthony Towns, Willie Cauley-Stein.
That team is loaded.
We're
going to talk about them later
D'Angelo
in the
Russell,
show.
but I think Kentucky will be there too. Overall, I think it's going to be Arizona or Wisconsin taking that NCAA title.
Yeah, my Final Four prior to the tournament, I had Kentucky winning it all like most people do. They're just so loaded. I had them playing Virginia in the final, and Virginia obviously lost early in the tournament.
A lot of people had Virginia going.
Yeah, elite defensive team, but they weren't scoring enough points, and they lost to Michigan State. But I had Duke coming out of their region. Jahlil Okafor is legitimate, and that kid, Justin Winslow, he reminds me of Lance Stevenson. But
is he blowing in people's ears?
No, he's not blowing in people's. But Lance Stevenson, but even more athletic than what Lance Stevenson is now. This guy plays like he's a 7-foot center, but he's only a 6'6" small forward. He blocks shots. He just competes on the defensive end of the floor. He rebounds like crazy, which is shocking to see from a small forward. But I had Duke. I had Arizona making it to the Final Four because I love Arizona. They're one of the more underrated teams in this tournament.
Stanley Johnson.
They're a 2 seed, but they have a Stanley Johnson, terrific freshman phenom. But they have a lot of upperclassmen on that team, a lot of veterans on that team who've been there before and have been in the tournament. And I think this team is due to make a deep run and possibly win the tournament this year.
Another team that I wouldn't doubt is UNC. I mean, they've been one of those teams like UCLA that have been hot or up and down all season.
And now
they
they're
caught
just,
some fire.
right.
This has been an up, and it's just like UConn in previous years. A middle of the pack team catches fire. All you have to do is win one game to move on. It's not like you have to win a series. You don't have to, win a.
It's one game.
It's one game. Maybe one guy dominates that game.
Exactly.
Your team is feeling it that game, and you win.
Yeah,
That's
with
all
UConn,
it takes.
I mean, it was just Shabazz every single game.
Shabazz or Kemba.
Or Kemba.
And that's why UConn didn't make it. They didn't have that guy. They didn't have that guy to lead them. But I see that in UNC and UCLA, a team that could just, pull upsets. And
UCLA is that team that have been hot throughout the tournament from behind the arc. I mean, they're killing teams. They're draining threes whenever they're taking them. I mean, they're just an elite shooting team, but all teams have poor shooting nights. And I have a feeling UCLA is going to get one of those nights.
And we know you're
up.
saying, Holden.
Right. I don't have to say it again. But I think UCLA is going to go down pretty soon because I don't think you can keep up that level of shooting and that level of efficiency throughout this whole tournament. But sticking with Kentucky, we've talked about how deep they are. Willie Cauley-Stein, Carl Anthony Towns, just guys all over the place. I mean, 5-star guys coming off the bench. Third stringers.
Their bench is better than some starting lineups.
Their bench could be a Sweet 16 team. So could Kentucky beat an NBA team?
No way. Well, listen.
Could they beat the 76ers?
Are you talking about an NBA team that has a whole bunch of D-League players on them?
I'm talking, could they beat the 76ers? Could they beat the Bucks? Could they beat?
No chance they beat the Bucks.
Could they beat the Knicks? Could they beat the Kings? Could they beat one of these bottom feeder NBA teams?
They can beat.
Could they beat the Orlando Magic, like one of these bottom feeder teams?
They can beat the Knicks and the 76ers, and that's it. I don't see them beating the Timberwolves. The Kings.
Could they beat the Celtics?
No way they could beat the Celtics. The Celtics are playing very well as of late against NBA teams.
But in general, if you make a team of guys in the league who are playing today, a 12-man squad of just guys in the NBA today, could Kentucky beat them?
No.
I
don't think we're talking professional players. I could make a point if we're talking teams like the Knicks that their whole roster is second, third year players who've been in the D League most of their career, who are virtually college players. I could see them beating the Knicks in a 7-game series and the 76ers, but I can't see them beating the Magic. I can't see them beating the Sacramento Kings. There's no way they could beat Rudy Gay, DeMarcus Cousins, Ben McLemore. And then if you look at the Magic, I mean, they do have some young guys with Alfred Payton, Victor Oladipo, but I can't see them stopping Vucevic down low.
Exactly.
It's a tough one, but I could see them beating the 76ers, and I could definitely see them beating the Knicks because this team is legitimate. But it also is a different style of basketball, too. It'd be tough. Are we talking the NBA coming to play in college or the college? Because it's 20-minute halves. It's shot clock's longer. It's a different style of play.
Exactly.
If we're talking just pure talent, I think they can only beat the 76ers and Knicks and nobody else.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think it's going to have to be specific NBA teams. Like if we say, Kentucky plays the Heat, I don't think they're winning with the Cavs. I think it has to be the Knicks or it has to be the 76ers because both teams don't have star players and both teams are mostly comprised of second-year, third-year players.
Who could be in college still.
Who could still be in college. And obviously these teams are bottom feeders in the NBA right now. I think Kentucky could legitimately beat those two teams. And they're just so deep. It's just remarkable that they have the Harrison twins at the point guard spot and the 2-guard spot. Both guys are 5-star recruits. Then they can bring a guy like Tyler Ulis and Devin Booker, who are also 5-star guys off the bench. They can literally swap out rotations with 5-star guys. It's insane. But does that necessarily mean Kentucky? They went. This is my next question. They went 40. They're on the road to go 40-0. They're undefeated right now.
Yeah.
If they go undefeated, does John Calipari, with all that talent on that roster, deserve to be Coach of the Year?
I think he deserves to be Coach of the Year if they win it all. If they don't win it all, I think it needs to go to a team maybe that wins it all. You know what I mean? Like let's say UCLA goes all the way.
Exactly.
I think their coach deserves Coach of the Year. I think Calipari deserves it if he does bring this team because just because you have talent, you still got to work that all together. There's going to be egos on that team. There's going to be guys who are maybe complaining about minutes because there's guys on the bench who could be
starters at Arkansas.
The starters for 4 years on any other team.
Exactly.
And then you come to Kentucky and you have to be coming off the bench. Minutes are lessened. So you have egos to work out, and you have to still put a team out there, and you still have to win games. This isn't just we'll just give you a bye to the tournament. We'll say you went undefeated. Like you have to win games.
Exactly.
But I think he should. But West Virginia, watch out for them. They lead the nation in turnovers, and they lead the nation in fast break scoring. And that's one way you can beat Kentucky is make them turn the ball over. But that's easier said than done, obviously. And we'll see what happens. But I would say the teams that could beat them are West Virginia and Arizona if we get down to the Final Four area.
I mean, I just want to bring this up. Kyle Wiltshire, who's playing for Gonzaga, Player of the Year candidate, spent his first 2 years at Kentucky. That's how talented they are, that they can have players leave that school, go play for another school, and be a Player of the Year candidate. That is insane. But I definitely agree with you, Justin. I think John Calipari deserves to be named Coach of the Year if they do run the table. This guy should not only be commended for the X's and O's aspect of coaching and winning games, but also managing those egos, managing all those 5-star McDonald's All-Americans and having them buy in to the coaching philosophy that Cal uses. Buying in, Karl Anthony Towns is only averaging between 9 and 15 minutes a night. Like, and he's going to be probably the number one or number two pick in the draft.
Timberwolves, yeah.
How can you convince a guy like that to sacrifice so much because they want to win? And for Cal to convince all these players to buy in is just remarkable. And his recruiting is
off the charts.
Off the charts. I think he's a better recruiter than Krzyzewski. I think definitely Cal, if he runs the table, he deserves to be Coach of the Year.
And the thing with their team is so talented. I mean, they have Willie Cauley-Stein has the possibility of he might make history as the third player ever to be a bench player in the NBA and be a top 5 pick.
Right.
It only happened 2 times previous with Deion Waiters.
And that just speaks
and
to
Marvin Williams
the player development program in Kentucky, because when Cauley-Stein came in, he was a bench player. He came off the bench for Nerlens Noel, who was obviously playing for the 76ers. But for his first 2 years, he rode the bench.
Yeah.
And now he's possibly a top 5 pick.
Just because it was like I think he reminds me of JaVale McGee.
Right. That also, I feel like, broaches the subject. Should players stay in college for more than a year? Should we have these one and dones? Because guys are going into the draft. Because we've seen guys go one and done who aren't. Guys are going into the draft after 1 year of college getting drafted, but then we see guys who, if they went into that same draft, they would be second-round picks, but now they're staying in college, like Cauley-Stein. Now they're going to be top 5 picks.
And look at Draymond Green. He stayed in college 4 years, and he's going to be getting paid big money because of the years having Golden State this year.
Right.
It helps your maturity level, but it also can hurt at the same time because NBA teams maybe don't want to invest a lot in a guy who's already 22 years old. Maybe they want to invest in a guy who's 18 who can build, like Marco Harder-Williams. He only stayed at college 1 year, but he was an older player. He's 22 years old, and it's the second year in the league.
Right.
Guys who were the second year in the league, like Nerlens Noel, are 19 right now. So you have much more time to develop them. But there is a case to be made. Stay in college. Get more mature.
Get your free education.
Get your education. If all else fails, you have something to fall back on. And
exactly.
Generally just become a better basketball player. But a lot of guys, they see the money in the NBA, they see the fame, the fortune. It's a tough thing to pass up because what if you blow out your knee next year?
Right.
When you had a chance to go top 5 last year.
I think staying in college is a great choice because, like the NFL that requires players to stay for 3 years in college, you're using those years to develop not only mentally but physically. Growing stronger, building muscle, gaining weight, becoming bigger to handle all that stress of playing at a high level in the pros. I think right now you see guys in the NBA. Draymond Green stayed for all 4 years, and he's flourishing. Gordon Hayward was a 4-year guy at Butler. He's flourishing. I mean, Damian Lillard, 4-year guy at Weber State, and now he's flourishing. And you look at
guys like Archie Goodwin on the Suns, who stayed 1 year
in Kentucky, and now he's in the D-League.
Yeah. He's getting some decent minutes now, but he's not going to be starting anytime soon.
I mean, look at Brandon Knight. He's a good player, but he's bounced around from team to team to team to team. He was a 1-year guy. And then you look at James Young, 1-year guy, Celtics. He's barely playing. There is a good side to staying in college for all 4 years, or at least 2.
Otto Porter stayed 1 year in Georgetown,
and now he's
going to be behind Paul Pierce. And then if Durant signs there, the only way he gets minutes is if Paul Pierce retires and Durant doesn't sign there, and there's an opening at small forward, and he develops.
But even so, I mean,
that's 5 years.
Yeah, it's really. I think for some guys they need to come out right away, but for some other guys they still need to stay in the league. Like Nerlens Noel, I think would have flourished if he came back to Kentucky. Put on some weight. That dude is 6'11", but he only weighs 220 pounds.
Oh man, that team would be good with that.
Yeah, so I mean,
well then again, Anthony Davis could still be on Kentucky right now.
Right. What about Anthony Bennett, who only did 1 year at UNLV? And he was the number 1 overall pick.
I feel bad for Anthony Bennett because, sure, everybody wants to be drafted 1, but I don't think he thought he was getting drafted number 1. That's a lot of pressure. I mean, it wasn't like the clear-cut, Wiggins or Parker.
Exactly.
Like this guy was like,
that was like.
Do we take Noel? Do we take Alex Len?
That was the first draft I've seen where I think the number 1 team, the Cavs, should have traded down and possibly got multiple picks for the next year with the Wiggins draft because really there was no number 1 pick.
There was no star.
Oladipo was the best player, and he's only averaging 14 points for the Magic. I mean, it's just kind of like, but yeah, it's definitely interesting to just to watch because in the NFL we see all these guys stay for 3 years, 4 years, some 5 years, and the hit or miss ratio is less. Like there's more hits than misses, in my opinion. But then you watch some of these guys in college, and it's hard to think. you're playing a man's game at 19. Archie Goodwin is playing professional basketball at 19 years old. He's playing with guys that are in their 30s.
They've been playing for 10, 12 years.
I definitely think he should have stayed at Kentucky, and I think he just saw the money, and it was a cash grab. And he didn't really have a good college career, in my opinion, but he saw the money and he went right for it.
He was decent. And the guy like Archie Goodwin he doesn't necessarily, you look at guys, you look at these seniors who are like C.J. Fair for Syracuse, right?
Yeah.
Guy averaged 15.7 rebounds, and you're like, why isn't this guy going high up in the draft?
Right.
He had a great college there. Then Archie Goodwin maybe averages 10 points, but they see his NBA talent and his athleticism. They don't see that in C.J. Fair.
Right.
But there's like
C.J.
Scoop
Fair,
Jardine.
right?
Remember
C.J.
him on
Fair,
Syracuse?
they look at him, they go, well, you're only 6'7", and you're a power forward.
Yeah.
And
he's not big. He's not that big. But
right. In the
people
NBA,
look at stats, and you're like,
right.
well, what's up? Why isn't he? So a lot of the NBA, too, is guys who are NBA ready to go. Like the Harrison twins, they're great players in college. I don't know if they're going to be great players in the NBA. I don't really see that.
I don't think so either, because I really think they need to be surrounded with great talent. In my opinion, they need to be given all the pieces to really succeed. I don't think these guys could thrive on their own. Yes, they're both 6'5". Yes, they're both great guards, good defenders, but these guys need to have pieces around them because they can't really score on their own. And it's just, I think that's what's great about college and the NBA. The NBA, you have your stars in the NBA and you have your stars in college. And
it could be very.
Christian Laettner just had his documentary. He wasn't the greatest NBA player,
but he was a great college player.
He dominated in college.
Then that is seen more than you think. There's guys who you see, like Shabazz Napier, dominated in college.
But now he's
undersized in the NBA. Maybe he'll pick it up. I don't see him being a starting point guard in the NBA.
No.
He's a backup. DJ Augustine dominated in college for Texas. He's been all over the place.
He's a good off-the-bench
He's
player.
a great off-the-bench player. But the 9th pick for the Bobcats should be their starter.
Exactly.
Came out good because they got Kemba, but that's another guy. But then there's guys like Durant who dominated in college. Adam Morrison, 22 points a game at Gonzaga.
Exactly.
Number 3 overall pick.
Right.
Where is he now? He's back at Gonzaga coaching basketball.
Exactly. Well, Justin, as the show winds down here with 2 minutes left, tomorrow night, Rosemary LaChance is having her 7th live show at NHTV Hotbox, and she's talking about reincarnation.
Wait, who's having the show?
Rosemary LaChance, NHTV legend, taking over from the likes of Bill Pagley and Bill Delane, who have left the studio in recent weeks. But anyways, she's doing a show on reincarnation. Justin, who do you think you were in a past life?
Larry Sanders.
He's still alive.
Past life. Darth Vader.
Okay. He was real?
Did Star Wars happen way back?
I'm talking like real person. Were you like a fireman? Were you like a...
Oh, what was my profession?
Yeah.
A Sith Lord. No. I was probably... maybe I was an NBA player.
You were you were like a 70s, 80s.
Maybe I was like an
NBA
Archie
player.
Goodwin type player who could say, I was in the NBA, but who knows? What about you, Holden? What were you?
I don't know. I think I was probably a politician or some kind of public speaker because I can just talk all day. But thanks for watching Sports Talk. I'm Holden Pirelli.
I'm Justin Palillo.
See you next week. What was that up with my mic? Was it working? Was I like muted for the first 10 minutes of the show?